And so Mr. Williamson and Dr. Malinoff, I'm going to put you two on the spot. And so 47% of Latinx and 30% of Black respondents report the lack of structure is the barrier to transition to virtual learning. And so Dr. Malinoff runs the Bright Futures After School program, and they have been doing some virtual things. And so I guess I wanted you to kind of chime in on that particular point as to how you're going about engaging students and providing some structure for students during this virtual transition.
So it's not easy, and it's filled with all kinds of challenges. But what well, I'll just speak to Bright Futures and kind of how we pivoted and what we've rolled out.
Tell us what Bright Futures is first and how
Oh,
many.
yeah. Okay. For those of you who don't know, EMU has 5 21st Century Community Learning Centers grants. Each of those supports after school and summer programs in 5 buildings. So we have 25 schools, 8 of them in Ypsilanti, 3 in Romulus, and the remaining in Wayne Westland. And we provide during non-COVID time, 2.5 hours a day, 4 days a week of an extended day of learning and enrichment. And we provide 6 weeks of programming also in the summer. In the COVID space, everything, so what is out of school time in COVID, especially from March till summer? That was just about all the time was out of school, like, because the schools, I have to say, I really honor the challenge that that the schools have had to take on, and think that everybody has been working as hard as they can to try and figure this out. There's no playbook, and nobody was prepared, like nobody. Maybe virtual schools, nothing changed if you were already going to a virtual school. That said, in Michigan, for those who may not know, the kids were told if you were passing in March, you will pass school, kind of pass, fail. We're not going to hold people, we want equity, so we're not going to hold the kids accountable for being online, because not everybody could get online, and so they distributed packets, and it was, I think, the best people could come up with at the time, and that was a decision by the governor and her group. So some of the high school kids, for example, just said, okay, I'm passing, I'm done. And they didn't do any of the connecting with the high school courses or expectations. So we had, the first thing we did was reach out and find the families. Sometimes we had the wrong numbers, but we persevered, and we probably serve about 50 to 60 families in each of those 8 buildings. So we have somewhere between 400 and 500 families that we needed to reach. And our first effort was to find out where they were at. Do we have the right, information? How do we best communicate? What are their immediate needs, so that we could connect people with food insecurity to food, people with housing insecurity, homelessness, working with Marquand. I mean, we just mobilized every connection we had while we figured out how to get some things going online, but also some things that were delivered directly to the door. So we delivered, I don't know how many thousands over the time, but I'd say probably between 1,000 and 2,000 deliveries to the door of packets and materials and art materials and outdoor play materials for the summer and whatnot, with lots of instructions and fun activities and a lot of phone check-ins for those families who still weren't connected. EMU worked on connectivity, and I know this just from the initial effort was to get 400 families connected. And after the first round of trying to do that work very diligently, I don't know, something just under 100 families were actually connected. It's not as easy as it sounds. It's really complicated, because you have to first get the technology to the people, then you have to teach the people how to use the technology. You got to work with all the hotspot and Wi-Fi providers. So that work is still going on. So that's it. So basically programming was club in a tub delivered to the door with lots of follow-up. And I will mention that one of the projects, which we will continue for as long as there's produce, is to purchase produce packets from the farm at St. Joe's, which is a collaboration. So there's other farms that are putting stuff in the packet and distribute them. We distribute about 120, 140 packets every Wednesday with produce to do the activity. So we are not, with our money, allowed to do food insecurity, but we are allowed to teach cooking. So we're teaching cooking with produce and teaching nutrition with produce and getting these produce packets to the door. Packets meaning lots of activities for the families. We've gotten amazing feedback. They're cooking this stuff. They're working together, family activities. It's been a real great organizer for us and great resource for all of us, great partnership. We've also done a lot with art, a lot of academic stuff. We are still figuring out the fall programming. We will support the face-to-face programming in Ypsi, along with providing online and, again, club in a tub delivery to the door programming for our students, and we will expand the students we serve. We're working directly with the district. I will say that we have done our own research to see like what impact we've had with the families. And there have been a couple of things that were really outstanding. One is families making statements about and answering positively about feeling connected and cared about. And so that was our first thing. Like everybody, our party line was that to be sure the families know that they matter and that we care about them. That was the bottom line for everything we did, because the disconnect would create so much learning loss if they really felt like they were out there. The other thing that we got tremendous feedback on, really high numbers, high percentage. I don't have the data in front of me, so I don't want to spout numbers, but was that our work with the families to help them get connected and then teach them how to use the technology to engage in our projects and programs allowed those kids to get comfortable enough to be ready for school. And so I say that really proudly. We did it because it was the right thing to do. We didn't know that school would start mostly virtually and that it would have an impact over the long haul, but we will continue to provide access to work on connectivity along with the district and engage at EMU. And a shout out, my site coordinators, most of them teachers who just work for us, I mean, it's a full-time gig, have been tremendous in this space, knocking on doors, giving kids art projects, having them hang the work in the window, taking a picture of it, putting it on their Facebook feed, right? Anything we could do to get people connected and to participate. So thank you for letting me kind of ramble about that, Marquand, but I'm very proud of the work we're doing, and I'm anxious all the time because no matter how hard we work, we can't reach enough kids, we can't reach enough families, we can't do enough work, we can't connect enough, can't get enough food out there. It's really like, down, it's just moving all the time. So the more partnering we can do, the more resources we can get our hands on that we can help disseminate. That's why I asked about, like I'm imagining, I'm all about, the kids and their families getting flu shots. And I'm imagining figuring out a way to have, a medical van go to the neighborhood, just go house to house to the families that want it and provide those shots, because they're not going to get to the doctor's office to get those shots, right? I mean, it's really hard to get them out and about more than what they're able to manage right now. So anyways, I really appreciate everybody on this call. I am so bowled over by the methodology, and also I want to say out loud, because I will use this data as we continue to seek resources, just the structure of having the graphics but being able to click and then get more information is brilliant. And all of us who are doing work in Ypsilanti should not only have access, but we should read everything, which will take me a little while. Thanks.
Thank you. And so I before I connect with Mr. Williamson, I see that Commissioner Jefferson has his hand raised. So Commissioner Jefferson.
Thank you, Marquand.
Mm-hmm.
Just letting you know, I came in maybe about 24 after. Good to be here. The email that was sent out had a link that was supposed to take me to Yanazario's results of the COVID-19 survey, but it doesn't. And it just takes me to a blank page. So I was wondering if you could resend that somehow.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. Thank you. And so I appreciate you for being here. And I connected with Mr. Williamson because this morning we had a conversation around, as you know, or you may not know, he's been the director of Park Ridge for some time. And we're thinking around, we have 86 units, as I'm looking out, there's 86 units on one side and there's 144 units on the other side. And there's a school that's empty in between that, but then there's Park Ridge. And so we are really thinking about how do we reimagine Park Ridge to be a hub for kids who they may be part of that group where their parents are working and they're at home alone, but could use just a checkpoint or just a connection. And so I'm glad to see WMBK there. How do we all pull our resources, or Ginsburg Center? I want to give a shout out to Sarah because they did these what are they called? Ready to Thrive kindergarten packets with all these different fun activities. And we were able to hand those out all summer long. But I mean, and Mr. Williamson has these art kits that they handed out at Park Ridge. And so we're all trying to be as creative as possible. But I can't stress enough is we don't continue to engage these students, we will lose them. And so, you know, I'm trying to be as innovative as possible. So I'm glad that Chris is on the line, because sometimes when I need to be innovative, I need to find some funding or some supports and some dollars from different agencies to help me be thoughtful around this. But we really spent a lot of time this morning with the lease and the county administrator thinking around how do we do something that's sustainable for kids and families. And so, you know, what would a mobile, you know, I said, just before I got on the call, me and Mr. Williams were talking around this idea of what would it look like if we took a mobile classroom and put it in the middle of the field and did semis work around the side and like use that trailer as a classroom, but then used outdoors as a classroom. So maybe we do different experiments and really use the things that are around us so that kids could have a learning experience absent being in the classroom. So we really are trying to be super thoughtful around how do we create some structure in this chaotic space that our students were just kind of thrown into as we were. But I mean, think about how traumatic it is. You go home on a Friday from school thinking that I'm returning to school in a few days or next week, and now the contents of my desk are being mailed to my house and everybody's wearing masks and we can't go outside and we have to stay 6 feet apart. I mean, I just think our students, our families in particular, we're not prepared, just as we weren't. But how do we, now knowing what we know and looking at this data, now what? What's next for us? And how do we move the conversation forward?
So a really critical piece that Jimena has highlighted has to do with making sure that our communities are vaccinated for the flu. And that really starts with making sure that we have trusted messengers out in the community. She and I spent a long conversation yesterday working through how do we make sure that people have that trust and that faith in first the flu vaccine and then COVID vaccinations, and making sure that the folks that are in positions of leadership in our community and who are in positions of trust are helping to spread that message and make sure that our community is as protected as it possibly can be as we go into the fall and into the winter.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you, Elise.
So I think that we have had important conversation, and I appreciate everyone for taking time. If there's more questions, we'd be happy to answer those. If not, we'll start to wrap up, but the link is there. And we will make sure that we send out the actual survey or assessment to those of you who are interested. We'll send it to everyone on this call, and so you can have it. And let's use this as a starting point. So let's think about what's next and think about your agency or the organization you work for, and where do you see yourself at, and how can you help us in bridging some of the gaps as it relates to standing up supports for these families. So I'll turn it back over to Patrick or Trina or Yan and Mr. Williamson.
Well, am I not muted? Okay, so it's something we talk about all the time. And how many people we have on here? 19. And it's a shame that I don't know 50% of the people on here. I've been working in this community 23 years at Eastern Michigan, at Washington Community College, did my internship with the University of Michigan. And that's the thing that we talked about earlier, collaboration. We all are doing our little things in our little silos and not including everybody on there. Between us, we have tremendous strength, but separately, I think some of what we try to offer to our communities get lost. And I think if we can do anything different, is that we have to now connect with each other to support what one another does. After Lynn spoke, you know, because she talked about her at Eastern Michigan University, I'm always in my professional role, I struggle to say I'm part of Washington Community College, because that's what they want me saying. But at the end of the day, I'm part of a solution for this community. I work for Washington Community College. I went to Eastern, I teach at Eastern, but I've been in on the south side of Ypsilanti for 23 years trying to provide service. And I don't get caught in the who I work for. And I think a lot of us do that. And as we look, because I know some of the folks on here and they do a lot of work. I mean, I'm looking at Zach right now. When Zach first started, I walked across the street and said, hey, Mr. Fosler, I'm Anthony Williamson. I used to work there. How can I help? And we've been working together ever since. So that's something that I would hope that we do better. Is collaborate and work with one another for a better solution. That's it for me.
All right.
Thank you so much. I think if I can just jump in really quickly, I was hoping everyone would have a chance to introduce themselves, but it looks like some people started by just putting in the chat so we can have a list of kind of who is here, particularly if we're going to send them copies of the survey and copies of the data. That would be nice. You might know everybody, Marquand, but just making sure we have a record would be nice. And Mr. Williamson, I would just like to say that even though this was a one-time kind of poverty solutions funded, let's do some surveying going out, I'm Trina Shanks, and I work at the University of Michigan with Patrick in our Center for Equitable Family and Community Wellbeing. And this is the sort of thing we were created to do, to work with community partners, to use small amounts of money to hopefully have big impacts. And so, so I know Marquand, and if Marquand can have other great ideas for us to do, I know that we're more than willing. So just wanted to put that out there. Make sure you put your name in the chat if you want to get any of these resources sent to you via email. And that's all I have to say. So just wanted to make sure I made that point.
Right, thank you.
Marquand and Patrick, if you guys want to close out, that's fine.
So I just want to thank Patrick and Trina both for leaning into this work. I mean, I think we literally pulled the application together in 3 or 4 days, but we were taking a chance, and I'm glad we had the opportunity to do so. So Patrick.
Oh, well, thank you, Marquand. I think a lot of this came from your initiative and your spirit. So thanks for taking the interest and having the initiative to put this all together. So I thank everyone's participation. I thank you again for putting together the graphic. And yeah, I look forward to communicating and corresponding with everybody going forward.
I'd just like to say thanks to all of you that worked, and your diligent work shows, and just thank you. And not just for those that worked on this project, but thanks to everyone on the call, because everyone is doing, you know, what we need to do in our own little corner. But I do echo and ditto Anthony that we get more when we work together. We truly are stronger together. I've been seeing some visuals of that lately, that it actually works. So, but keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and enjoy your weekend. And stay safe. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.